Please continue as you are, with eyes closed or halfway open. These words who is speaking on the subject of grace. The state of grace to which I refer cannot be used for anything. It would appear to come, this state of grace, the tranquil happiness that radiates from people and things is enhanced by a lucidity which can only be described as light. It's so very, very bright. It is the lucidity of those who are no longer, they simply know. One starts to feel that everything in existence, whether we are speaking of people or things, everything breathes and exhales the subtle light of energy. We must never forget that the state of grace is only a tiny aperture that allows us to glimpse a sort of tranquil paradise. But we mustn't forget that it is not an entrance, nor does it give us the right. But one does emerge from a state of grace with clear skin and open, thoughtful eyes. And even without a trace of happiness, it is as if one's whole body were bathed in a gentle smile. And so one comes away a better person than when one entered, after experiencing grace. The human condition, once we experience it, is revealed in all its sadness and sorrow, thereby reaching us and teaching us to love more, to forgive more, and show greater faith. In a way, one begins to have a certain confidence in suffering and its ways, which can so often, when misunderstood, become unbearable. The amazing Clarice Lispector. As she said, the state of grace which we always have an opportunity to be in as we move through meditation, the state of effortless awareness. That state isn't good for anything except to remind us of the possibility of living in that state constantly. We need that, and the world around us especially needs that. So let everything go, especially don't think about thought that comes and goes. Let it come and go as the wind is coming and going from time to time. We must remember to be as we truly are. Peaceful, loving, compassionate, forgiving, and knowing. This time of the year, just before spring or the fall, never liked the winter. We've had to run away from the winter since we're older. But the fall and the spring, just before the crowds came, always wonderful time for meditation. I imagine for young people to come in the winter time, except on that Thursday, you don't want to have come. But for young people, winter time is a very good time to meditate, isn't it? I used to like rainy days because I could tell my mother, I think my throat hurts. I don't think I should go to school today. And my mother fell for it every time. Your throat hurts. Get into it. And I associate rainy days with playing hooky from school. My mother was paranoid about my getting sick. So I played rainy days for all they could do for me. Does anyone have any? This room is breaking the protocol, the tradition of the usual programs I offer, where I go from reading to reading. That's why they call readings from the masters, and have dialogues about them. Does anyone have any question you've been carrying around for a while and would like to bring up in a smaller setting? And you won't be receiving answers from me. You'll be receiving answers that we've heard from Sri Brahmananda about any question you could possibly ask, as long as it was on the feeling level rather than the theoretical level. So, or the spiritual level. Anybody? You may have some, I may have some for you as we go along. If you don't have a question, I'm going to go to a reading, an excerpt from an essay of Sri Brahmananda's, which is called What is Truth? And I'm just reading 2 paragraphs because they are so powerful and so stimulating as far as stirring old questions we did have, perhaps as children, when we couldn't understand why there was so much suffering in the world. I was about 12 during World War II, and I remember I just couldn't understand why a God would allow children and elderly people to go through so much. And so I turned away a little bit from all religion as a 12-year-old. And when I asked my parents about it, they said, no, there are some things you can't understand until you see the whole picture. And so when I met Sri Brahmananda and found he had answers for why suffering, why so much sorrow, and why it seemed little babies were suffering as much as grown-ups, I found to my astonishment, being an enlightened soul, he knew everything. And he took a question that I asked about that I had been carrying around since I was 12, which would have made it almost 20 years, carrying a question that had me quite sad and depressed a lot of the time inside. I didn't show it. And within 2-3 minutes, his answer released me from all that pain, all that confusion, all that fear. But You had to be there. I'll answer it as best as I can, but listen to what he says in these few paragraphs. This is taken, it might be, I think What is Truth is in decades, right? What is Truth, that essay? That's where I got it from. I am in the universe of changes, right? Oh, one What is Truth? There's another What is Truth? Oh, I still have about 20 more years to live. I will find out what is the other truth. But this is from I Am and the Universe of Changes. What is truth? And this is what Gurdjieff says, and I will ask what you think about this. He says, once we experience the unconditional reality, which is the basic foundation of all conditional realities. Once we experience that unconditional reality, then all our tension, our feelings of disunity and disharmony, the main causes of dissatisfaction, restlessness, unhappiness, all of these are dropped from our life or from oneself forever. And once they're dropped, one experiences absolute bliss and unity within oneself. That's a guarantee. He used to say, if not, consult the author of these words. We always loved that, and he says we can still consult the author in meditation. I'll read it again. It says, once one experiences, but I like to say once we're able to experience the unconditional reality, which is the basic foundation of all conditioned realities, meaning what's behind the manifested universe. Once we can experience that unconditional reality, then here's the guarantee. Then all our tension, disunity, disharmony, dissatisfaction, restlessness, and unhappiness are dropped from oneself forever. And one experiences absolute bliss and unity within oneself. Guruji would go like this, what more do you need? I'm giving you guarantee. All you need is to experience that unconditional reality. So my first question, before I go on, so we're clear, what is unconditional reality? How would it be defined? What is unconditional, no conditions, unconditional reality? What is behind all our movements, all our thinking, all our compassion, all our feelings, all our actions? What's behind that? If we were not conscious at this moment, isn't it? We're totally beyond in deep, dreamless sleep. Would we know what we were feeling? Would we know what we were thinking? Would we know unhappiness? Would we know even happiness if we were in deep, dreamless sleep? What is needed in order for us to know things, to be aware of things? Who said it? Pat? Consciousness. That's what this ashram is all about. Discovering that our real, true reality is the in which all of these bodies, including our own body, is sitting in this consciousness, in this space. Right now, this changing body is sitting in consciousness. This changing world is sitting in consciousness. But Sri Nisargadatta, photographed next to the light on the wall, from I Am That, Sri Nisargadatta said that if this room suddenly blew up, and we didn't even know, in a second it blew up, and we were already gone, taking a new body. All that takes a second. So the bodies would be destroyed. The walls would be destroyed. The photographs would be destroyed. The buildings would be destroyed. Would anything happen to the space? It's all going to go into ashes, all this business. The space will be filled with ashes and dust and what, and then it'll all settle. Will the space be altered in any way because the rest of the world blew up? What do you think? Answer is no. No. This space around us, how many years would you estimate? Who's the scientific one in the group? Marvin, Darmaday? How many years would you estimate this space has been here? Millions of years. And what's inside of us? You know, when bodies are cremated, you know what we weigh? Darmadev, how much do we weigh? A few ounces. That's extraordinary, isn't it? So what we're worrying about so much, what we're concerned about so much, Zaina's mother was in very bad pain, I understand, before she passed away. And Zaina rushed to get there in time. But she didn't get there while her mother was conscious, so she didn't even know Zaina had come back. But Zaina had been there a few weeks ago, I think, spending a lot of time with her. But I am sure we are going to hear from Zaina when she comes back, that when she saw her mother's body, I should say, she saw it at peace again. Because when the soul leaves the body, all memories of pain and challenges and difficulties disappear. I hear it from many people who had told stories of pain and suffering that their parents went through. And when they saw the body for the first time, they felt for the first time in maybe 30, 40 years, an atmosphere of peace and joy in the room. Because the soul pulls out and doesn't relate to that body anymore. I'm talking what Virgil told. And doesn't have memory, conscious memory of what it left behind. So it's just functioning in the here now, the soul. And is free from any burdens. I've heard it from so many people that they felt shortly after, minutes after, hours after, the passing of the soul from their mother's, father's bodies, for the first time, peace around the body, peace in the room. I could testify to that myself regarding my father. That unconditional reality that is the basic foundation of all conditional realities. You, Ken Levy, I, Joan Sabal, you, Pat Quinn, all of us as individuals are conditional realities, but having the foundation of the unconditional reality of pure consciousness. And Gurdjieff said, it's so simple. Why do you complicate meditation? Having all kinds of expectations. Meditation is to familiarize yourself with that reality. We've lost touch with it. It can give you unbounded energy. It can give you joy. If you discover that that's the foundation of your existence, you can be free from all of these second-hand judgments that people have made about you that govern most of our behavior. If we want so much to be approved and respected by others, it all goes away. And then you look upon them as pitiable creatures, and you try to release them who have judged you so harshly from that realm, because they too have been conditioned secondhand by others. It's a cycle. But once you're free of the individual ego, so you can move into the cosmic ego, concerned for everybody on this planet, there's no description for that freedom. It's being free from the bondage of our own ego. That's the only thing holding us in bondage. Those are the chains of our own ego. Not our background, not our heredity, not our education, not our families, just our own ego. And sometimes our families are long gone, and we still hear their voices in our ears. The tapes are still going on, but we don't have to listen to them. We have to listen to what's here. As they say, what's here is the guiding light of a guru you've had for thousands of years. Many forms, many forms, many forms. We have, because he was with us, we're so lucky, so many years. He was with us physically 30 years here in this country, or more. 30 years since the ashram was founded in 1963. But we have memories of many different looks, faces. If you check our website, you'll see many different ages of the Guru and different manifestations. But it happens every lifetime our Guru comes in a different form. He told us, I know you many times. Sometimes you came to bless me, and sometimes you came to curse me. Whom did he say that to? Take a guess. He said it to me. Sometimes you're here to bless me, and sometimes to curse me. He went, I think this lifetime to bless me. I said, I hope so, because I didn't know what he was talking about. But now I know, because sometimes we give our gurus great agita, because we don't recognize how lucky we are to be in the company of an enlightened being. And he says, your guru can show up in a child, in a relative, and a friend. Sometimes we hear what we need to hear, even though we don't like what we're hearing. But messages will come. Invitations will come through these people, but they're from the Sadguru. And then Gurji goes on to say, the individual who experiences peace and unity within himself or herself also feels unity and peace with all other living beings, and feels that same peace and unity with the entire universe. How does that happen? How does it happen that when we are more in touch with our consciousness rather than our individual relative life? How does it happen that suddenly all the old feelings of anger against family members, against people at work, when we are feeling connected. We're holding on to that sense of awareness, to the sense of I am. Not I am this, I am that, I am tall, I'm fat, I'm thin. None of that. We're just connected to that vibration. How is it that all that other stuff, all that pettiness, and gossip, and judgmental behavior just drop away? What happened? It's a very good question. Because we would tell him sometimes, we would go and complain about people who were creating problems, at the ashram, and gossiping and backbiting and this and that. And he would go, very bad. And we thought that meant he was going to do something about it, right? We tell him that during the day. In the evening, we notice he would walk into the room and walk right by the person about whom the ashram was complaining, the whole ashram. And he would pat the person on the head and go, very fine work you are doing. Very fine. And he'd sit down and he would pay extra attention to this man and tell him he's giving him a promotion and some new duty to do. And us, he'd ignore that night. And if we ever had a chance, I had once in a while, to say, Gurju, why do you do that? You see, it's your job to complain and my job to show compassion. How would it be if I complained and you showed compassion? It wouldn't be good. He was joking when he answered that, but later on we began to realize that his understanding was so immense, so vast. He knew that that person, no matter how bad that behavior, was doing the best he could or she could, considering the genetic carryover and the environment in which that person had been raised. That person was doing the best he could do, and that in time he would do better. In time, exposed to this atmosphere. But it wasn't enough for him to tell us these things. We had to actually feel empathy for everybody. We had to feel a connection to everybody, no matter how different that behavior was from what we wanted or expected. The question is broken down now. What enabled us to feel that empathy, to feel that compassion, so that we didn't hold grudges or backbite or create more problems for the individual? What enabled us to have that direct connection and empathy? Anybody know? Put it negatively if you can't put it positively. Coming out of the past. Because all of our judgments are based on past memories, right? So if any time you find yourself dwelling on something negative that happened between you and somebody, know that that's only going to poison, creating disharmony and disunity. So refuse attention to it. He said, and Ramana Maharshi said, all enlightened people, refuse to linger there. In the Gita they say, refuse to dwell on things past. Our great scholar of the Gita, chapter 2, all suffering begins with dwelling. Remember? Lord Krishna says to Arjuna, the word is we dwell. We go over like a cow. We chew and chew and chew, keep chewing. We just know that's the mind with its old habit, and we say no to it. We refuse to dwell on anything psychological or emotional, anything, good or bad. To free us to be in the moment, connected not only with one another, but with everybody in the universe. Sometimes he said when you meditate a long time, when you're established in what is real meditation, which is effortless awareness, you can wake up in the morning, as he often did, and feel a heaviness just around you, and you don't know. You didn't have a bad dream that you remember. You don't have any heavy problem going on at the moment. But what you're feeling is some heaviness in some part of the world. When a tsunami struck, or the earthquakes in Haiti and Chile, the disasters, you feel the prayers and the suffering of so many people. They're reaching you because you're wide open. He used to feel, sometimes we could see that he was experiencing ahead of time a disaster that was coming. But the main thing that just came out of me is we have to break the habit of dwelling on the past, because it corrupts the present. It distorts the present. Anybody have a question about that? That's his teaching from the time he came to the States, and probably in India too. That was his name. The thinking mind is behind all our calamities. Not the thinking mind we need that helps us to function, but the thinking mind that we use unnecessarily. Any questions? Yes. Go. You. Painful to him? Yes. He was feeling the heaviness, the suffering of everyone. How was that not painful? In the moment it was painful. It's like when I go to a funeral, which I don't do very often. I just said no to one. But when I go to a funeral, and when you go to a funeral, at the moment that the body is, if it's being buried, is lowered into the grave, you can feel directly the pain to the immediate family members. And you feel it as he felt it. He cried a lot when he was feeling, a tidal wave had struck India. You could see the heaviness in him. But we also marveled that 2 minutes later he was out. So he felt it more, and he told us that the more we meditate, the more we would feel. We wouldn't be feeling less, but we would have the ability to come out of that and not be burdened with the sorrow by continually remembering it. There are disasters going on right now, but we're not focused on them. If we focus on them, yes. Watching those images from Haiti and Chile, your heart is breaking. See those children who couldn't find their mothers. They were totally bewildered. What happened to their mother? And to see those faces and people buried, and you feel it more. But we're talking about remaining in suffering. We will feel. We will feel more. He felt more than anybody, because he was feeling everybody's sorrow. But that has been and is the birth-death cycle from which we learn. You watch sometimes the nature series. You ever watch that on television? And you see that, is it the turtle who lay eggs? And then there's a rush by the little ones to get into the ocean. The little turtle just born, they're rushing to get into the ocean. Mother Nature, and they don't all make it. It's the cycle. It's the cycle. So you feel for the suffering, but you also know that it's only the body. That consciousness, the soul, is untouched by any of those things. We could talk for another 2 days, you know. We can have a little enough to remain with suffering. We know it exists. We know Haiti is still going through, and other places, Afghanistan, it's all over the world. Violence and hunger. True, Mother Nature. But the enlightened ones have always told us we're not able to see the larger picture of why it's taking place. We only see a little small mark on a huge tapestry. This world, this minute, is what we see. They see the whole thing. What they do feel is human suffering, even animal suffering. We watched him cry when a goose was brought to him with a broken leg. He ignored us completely and started talking to the goose. And the goose was a goose, wasn't it, Mark? Yeah? We have pictures of Gurji talking to the goose. Little leg, whatever it was. And the goose had been quacking in pain, whatever it does, honking, in pain as it was brought to Gurji. We were outside by that tree that no longer is there. It was struck by lightning, I think, wasn't it, that tree? That we had many a program out by that tree, that stump, you see. And Gurji was sitting under the tree, talking, and then we heard, honk, honk, honk. And someone was bringing this wounded goose up. And it was incredible. Honking until he was placed right in front of Gurji, and Gurji stopped talking. And the goose looked at Gurji, and the Gurji looked at the goose, and and he put his hand on the head of the goose. He said, no, we will take care of this. Don't worry. It is only momentary. You will be all right. He's having this meditation with a goose. And he called on someone who knew something about first aid. And he said, you take care, very lovely soul, he said about the goose. You take care, lovely soul. And for weeks, I think, they put a splint on the leg, and the goose was walking all around the ground. But at that time, but this immediate connection to the dogs and the cats and the geese. Once a goat, Gurji thought it'd be a good idea to drink goat milk. And we had this goat walking around, and that was Gurji's favorite disciple, so I don't know what happened to the goat, but we had a goat. So let's see, because there's a second reading I want to get to. And he says this: settle the war going on within his own self, has to create wars here and there in the objective world. He's saying that those who are at war within themselves, they're the ones behind the wars throughout the world. To experience world peace, to experience world unity, man has to experience peace and unity within himself. To recognize God in the objective universe, to see that power working behind every single human entity or animal entity, in order to recognize that, to recognize God in the objective universe, one has to cognize Him first within one's own heart. Conscience, what we feel is compassion, what we feel is empathy, godliness. God doesn't sit up there and question. I never spend less than 40 minutes on 2 paragraphs. But there were things in here, even what comes from me. It's his editing of the work coming through me. I never think about what I'm saying. I don't even know what I'm saying. I listen the way you listen. I said, that's good. Well, that's nonsense when I say something silly. I listen the way you listen. I'm hearing these thoughts of Gurji's or these statements of Gurji's that are coming back.
So take a deep breath. And now as you breathe out, release all the language, all the words. This will only be 60 seconds. So feel yourself letting go and opening up to this now. Feeling it, perceiving it, imbibing it. Sometimes it only takes 1 minute to reconnect with your real life, your real home. I am that I am. That is our home. Krishna Devi, would you lead us in our traditional prayer? Thank you, Krishna Devi. And if some of you are feeling very high, that you may need a designated driver, take 2 cookies. Chocolate chip is a great way to come back to earth.